We're getting closer to a direct clash with Iran, which was only a few weeks ago. The United States continues to move unprecedented military power into the region, and Iran, while negotiating, is burying facilities and fortifying tunnels underground. Greetings, I'm Ari, and we start with the statement from Amos Yadlin, the former head of Israel Defense Forces military intelligence, who spoke on Israeli television today. Last week, I allowed myself to fly to Munich, but this weekend I would think twice about it. And well, it's not just anyone saying this, it's someone who knows. How do these things look, these preparations, these movements, at least from the inside? Now, this is very important. Yadlin also puts a brake on the anxiety because he reminds us of something we sometimes forget when we see headlines and military movements. A superpower normally doesn't go to war in a matter of days. If there's still a diplomatic path to exhaust, that's the dynamic. I mean, yes, the scenario feels closer, but there's also a component of negotiation pressure that has to be exhausted. And it's precisely in this context that negotiations between the United States and Iran are taking place, according to what's been reported after the Second World War. A round of talks was held this Tuesday in Geneva at the residence of the ambassador of Oman. At the United Nations and with maximum security, there are two messages that are repeated. On one hand, United States officials acknowledge progress, but they clearly say that there is still much to discuss. And on the Iranian side, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi stated that in this round, more serious issues were discussed, at least more than before. The atmosphere was more constructive, and they even agreed on guiding principles to start drafting the text of a possible agreement. Up to that point, one could say, well, it sounds like normal diplomacy, but let's look at the context, because the context is what changes or gives weight to each phrase. In the first round, let's remember, the location was Oman, which has been acting as a mediator between Washington and Tehran for years. And in this second round from the very start, a high-ranking Iranian official made one condition very clear, that the United States should not come with unrealistic demands. And that's exactly the crux of all this, because Iran, according to what's being said, doesn't want its missile program or its support for armed groups in the region to be touched. In other words, they want to negotiate the nuclear issue, and only partially, it must be said, but they don't want to negotiate the rest of the package. And on the United States side, the vice president stated that Iran would not be accepting President Donald Trump's red lines, especially when it comes to the nuclear program and the ballistic missile program. Benz warned that if Iran were to obtain a nuclear weapon, it could trigger an arms race in the Middle East. And he emphasized that for Washington, the idea is simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. Meanwhile, Iran continues to do what the Ayatollah regime always does. They send contradictory messages at the same time. And you need to be very clear about this, depending on what you're watching, which news outlet, which coverage in your country you're seeing. Because it's not that they're lying or making up news. Simply put, Iran's message is one thing on one side and another on the other, a speech for their own people in Persian and a different one for the world in English. The Iranian president trying to sound pragmatic, the foreign minister sitting calmly like a negotiator, and above all, the supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, making threats. In fact, Khamenei sent a direct message to Trump saying, basically, you won't succeed in overthrowing the Islamic Republic either. And the thing is, Khamenei has spent the last few days posting direct threats to sink the aircraft carriers. So, what do we need to understand at the core? That diplomacy here is not just diplomacy. It's a tool within a show of force. And all of this leads us to the military movement that is being unleashed by the United States, which is historic here in the region. Just in the last 24 hours, the deployment of more than 50 United States fighter jets to the Middle East has been reported, including F-35s. For anyone, when you hear more than 50 planes, well, it just sounds like a number. That's it, but let's put it into perspective. We're talking about fifth-generation fighters, stealth aircraft designed to penetrate defenses, plus additional platforms that complement the package. It's a way of saying the military option isn't just a slogan, it's physically visible, it's physically center stage, which is important. To stay updated on what's happening in the region and Israel, subscribe and turn on notifications to know when I upload new videos. Alright, let's continue. We have another important event in this whole drama, the movement of the largest aircraft carrier in the world. The American monster, the Gerald Ford, which was dispatched by President Trump. That is, it was given the green light to move toward the Middle East. It was recorded today entering the Strait of Gibraltar, very close to the coast of Morocco, heading toward the Mediterranean Sea. But before I dive in, I want to share with you the story of this vial, which amazed me, and I think you should know about too. This vial holds an unbelievable story that was unheard until now. Inside is earth from the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, rescued by archaeologists after thousands of years of history were dumped as rubble. It is our opportunity to prevent history from disappearing. Start the new year with a personal connection to Jerusalem. Click the link in bio or scan the code to enjoy a special offer. To understand the scale, what is the Ford aircraft carrier? We're talking about a nuclear aircraft carrier with more than 100,000 tons of displacement and 338 meters in length. And if you're not good at visualizing meters, well, that's the equivalent of 3 soccer fields. It's a monster with 25 decks powered by 2 A1B reactors and capable of sailing at over 30 knots. On board, it can operate an air wing of 75 to 90 aircraft. And the human ecosystem, well, it's literally a floating city, with around 4,500 people including the crew and the air wing. The most serious thing isn't just the size, but the pace. The design of this class aims to generate around 160 combat sorties per day, with the ability to reach a peak of up to 270 in just 24 hours. Thanks to systems like electromagnetic launch, electromagnetic aircraft launch system, and advanced arresting gear, when an asset like this approaches, it's not just visiting or taking a stroll. It's literally a sign of power, and very destructive power. And here, something needs to be explained. When an aircraft carrier like this moves, it's not just any warship going out to patrol the coasts. It's a floating city with embarked aviation, logistical escorts, and a very powerful strategic message. According to estimates, and at the pace it's moving, the aircraft carrier could be arriving at the theater of war between February 20th and 21st. Much less than what was being discussed about early March, it would be positioned on this date operational and in attack position. And something important is that it joins the aircraft carrier that's already here, the Lincoln that's in the region, so there would be 2 aircraft carriers covering different flanks of Iran. On one hand, the Ford, which has already been confirmed to have entered the Mediterranean, so its war deployment would be right off the coast of Israel, and the Lincoln, which has already been covering the southern flank of Iran for a few weeks. Alright, even with all this, we can't be certain there will be an attack tomorrow. It means that at least the window of capability has opened up a lot from the strategic point of view of the United States. Deploying another aircraft carrier of this magnitude obviously gives them a pretty overwhelming strategic advantage. Regarding the threats from Khamenei, who, as I told you, stated that Iran is ready to sink American aircraft carriers. He also said regarding the Ford, which is on its way, that an aircraft carrier is a dangerous machine, but even more dangerous is the weapon that can sink it to the depths of the sea. Those were his statements.
They say we sent a warship. Iran's side very well, it's a dangerous machine. But even more dangerous than the warship is the weapon that, as we said, has sent this ship to the depths of the sea.
And this is part of the Iranian regime's narrative to show that it is not intimidated. But the reality is that when both sides talk like this, the margin for error gets smaller. And that's where accidents, misreadings, and miscalculations happen. And now I want to share with you the report, based on satellite images from Iran, where they are apparently preparing and fortifying several military and nuclear sites that were attacked in the last escalation cycle. The general idea is this. While Washington tries to negotiate a nuclear deal with the threat of Zapaya military action, Iran is working at full speed to protect sensitive infrastructure. The most symbolic case is the Parchis military complex southwest of Tehran. It's a historically sensitive place because for decades the West has suspected that tests related to detonations relevant to a nuclear weapon were carried out there. What the images show is that there is a new facility in that area. Iran is said to have built a kind of fortified concrete cover and then covered it with earth, basically to hide it and give it extra protection, a way to mislead the enemy. But let's not fool ourselves. It's very hard to deceive. We know there are all kinds of aircraft spying on Iran 24 hours a day. There is also reported activity near Natanz, around the entrance to the tunnels under a mountain, with trucks moving, mixers, and cement. Heavy machinery. In general, everything points to reinforcing those entrances defensively. The overall message that all this leaves is strong. Iran is shielding its key infrastructure. The question is this because they plan to withstand an attack, or because they're buying time to negotiate from a more protected position? Tell me what you think in the comments. It's probably both. And actually, these kinds of movements are observed while explosions and columns of smoke are being reported in places like Tehran and Shiraz with causes that are not entirely clear. And this has been happening for several weeks now. All right, now I want to move to Israel because while all this is happening out there, specific pieces are also moving here. Today, it has been reported in the Israeli media that within the Israeli security system, they are working with a very clear and very close operational hypothesis. If the United States decides to strike Iran in the coming days, Israel could receive Iranian fire, even if it does not participate directly in the attack. That's why the Home Front Command and emergency services would now be at the highest level of readiness. And the atmosphere in defense is literally at maximum tension, on constant alert. In fact, it's reported that the Security Cabinet meeting, which should have already taken place, was postponed to avoid an Iranian miscalculation. One of those situations where a wrong reading can speed everything up before its time. And the thing is, Israel's top commanders believe that a scenario like that wouldn't just be a blow, but rather it would be a much longer, more prolonged campaign, with objectives that could range from the ballistic missile arsenals, certainly, to the main infrastructure of the Iranian regime, targeting key objectives, even key figures of the regime, with the risk that the Houthis might even join in immediately, and that Hezbollah could also decide to enter from the Nibar. And to that, we have to add the latest statements from the Chief Executive Officer of Israel Aerospace Industries, Boaz Levi, who spoke about the Aero 4 system, which he is calling to replace System 2, which will soon become obsolete. With the introduction of this, he said that Israel is rushing to be prepared for the next war. Those were his statements. Levi explained that the Aero 3 and Aero 4 bring new, much more advanced capabilities to shoot down aerial threats, and that with the Aero 4 they aim to increase the success of interceptions, and that it would be 100% integrated with Israeli artificial intelligence. He also mentioned that during the 12-day war with Iran, dozens of interceptors were used, but that work is being done 24/7 to deliver the number of interceptors required by the Israel Defense Forces. In summary, Israel is not passively watching the negotiations between the United States and Iran. While this is happening and going on, week after week, all the entities in the country are preparing for the worst-case scenario. So then, what's official today sounds normal. Negotiations, diplomacy, rounds, statements. But underneath, what you see, what is being coordinated, what you see on the real stage, it's preparation and a silent race to improve positions. Both on the side of Iran, the United States, and Israel itself, the United States moves aircraft carriers and jets, Iran buries tunnels and covers facilities with concrete and earth, Israel speeds up defense systems and prepares for the next stage. The question is, what will happen now? Will we continue to see diplomatic progress while military muscle is being positioned, or are we entering the next part of the script? Where diplomacy starts to run out, starts to wear thin and drag on just to buy time, I hear it in the comments. For my part, I'll be keeping a close eye on all of this here, as always, with clear information and without much noise. So subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and don't leave without giving a like.